We're at S&R Fisheries and I am in the very fortunate position to start a brand new series where I go out and meet up with an absolute legend in the fishing game. We're going to get to know tactically what they're all about, delve into a bit of their character and see exactly what makes them tick. My first guest for this first episode is an absolute northern legend. He's caught big uns home and abroad. He's got an incredible pedigree and standing in the trade. It's none other than Simon Crowe himself. I'm going to get myself in situ in my swim. Crowe's getting set up next door. Hopefully we can nick a few fish, see exactly what makes the crowbar tick. Here he is, sports fans, Mr. Crowe. How are you, mate? Nice to see you, mate.
You too, mate. You too.
You're here. You fished here a bit,
You've not said hello to the dog.
Oh, that's ignorant of me, isn't it? She's eating.
I've fished here before. I've fished here once, mate, believe it or not, which
Oh,
was
okay.
in November last year. And we did an avid video down here in the winter in really cold conditions. Got really fluky because I sneaked out the biggest fish in the lake.
Classic Crowe, mate. Of course you did.
First trip that was. So
how big was that?
Really lucky. 35-ish or 34 and a half, I can't remember.
Right, okay, decent, mate. That.
Yeah, it's all right. Nice zip linear, lovely introduction to the lake. Caught 3 or 4 nice fish and only here for 48 hours, but back again. Really cold conditions at the minute, can hardly speak, face is very cold, dew drop on the end of the nose.
Look at my Uter, mate.
But there's carp showing, so
yeah, there is.
They're all over the place. Left hand side, lots of fish showing over there. A lot of them little, but amongst these little ones, you know there's going to be a few big ones, mate. But I've got the right side, a couple of plateaus out there, varying distance and depth. Left hand rod is on about 5.5 foot, I think it is.
Okay.
Right hand rod on those two that are there. That's slightly shallower in 4.5 foot, and then the right hand rod, that's tight against this margin on another little plateau which just comes off one of the green bushes over there, which is about 6 foot. So different depths. Spring's just, you know, it's just started in the last couple of days since the equinox, and they're going to start coming out, mate. So let's just hope we get something. We're only here for 24 hours. Just want to bite and you know, a bit of action, so you can see that there's carp in here.
Mate, if anyone can catch them, you can. And much bait gone out over them or not?
Not for me, no. Only a couple of handfuls over each rod.
Okay.
I have used a bait boat on here because you're allowed to use them,
yeah.
And it makes it much easier for finding those little lumps that are out there,
nice.
Rather than arriving here for 24 hours, getting the lead out, casting around, spooking fish out the area. Don't want to do that, so I've just found a couple of little nice little plateaus that's out there, dropped them right on top, and I'm just hoping now that something happens, the stars align.
I'm going to go and do exactly what you said not to do on the swim next door to you, mate, and get set up.
You'll probably catch, mate, because it's...
We will see.
There's one showing your swim now, there in that corner.
That's what they all say, it's a bird, isn't it?
It's not, that's a carp, you've seen it, it's a little in there.
Either way, I'm looking forward to it, mate. It's been a long time since we've been out. I'm going to punish you. You don't know you signed up for it, but I'm going to punish you.
Right.
We're going to talk rigs, some of your captures, loads of different elements throughout the course of the session.
Look forward to it, mate.
So I'm going to let you get some peace now, duck in the old bivvy.
Okay.
I'm going to get set up, and then we will reconvene, hopefully, you holding a big one. That's normally how it ends. I'll see you in a bit,
mate. See you in a bit, guys.
Crowe.
Hassan.
I'm going to talk to you about what I think is probably your favourite subject, mate. And that is rigs. I've had the pleasure of fishing with you before, and it's pretty much synonymous, mate, that you don't mess about when it comes to rigs, do you?
No, I don't. I try and keep it as simple as possible because for me, rigs is about confidence. It's about what you're confident in. So when you cast out, you know that you can leave that rig out there for X amount of hours and know that it's not going to cause you any problems. My rig that I use nowadays, it's been tried and tested on lots of different waters all over the world. I've used it now for well over 30 years and it still works for me today. So I've got no reason to change it, basically. No matter how many times I see people on social media, carp fishing films, telling me that this is the best thing to use, they will not convince me.
You are pretty set. 30 years you've used it for, haven't you?
Longer than that, I reckon, mate. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
In essence, talk to me about the components, the length, the actual sort of makeup of that rig, because it is I mean, I know you vary the length of it, but other than that, it's pretty much the same, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Let's go just one step further first, mate, because there is no such thing as a wonder rig out there. It's about confidence. It's about what you've got in your head. It's about using something that you believe is capable of catching your fish, and that confidence can go a massive way in carp fishing. I don't really change a great deal, mate. I might change the size of a hook, the pattern of the hook every now and again, the length of the hook link depending on what I'm fishing for, and maybe the strength of the hook link, the size of the lead, just simple things like that, or the size of the liner, where you maybe use a smaller one for a smaller hook or a larger one for a larger hook. But the actual components themselves, the actual setup of the rig, I should say, the principle of it stays exactly the same.
Talk to me about that. Do you use tubing lead core when needed? You don't normally, do you?
No.
Especially.
I try and take everything off that you possibly can, because it's that stripping it back and keeping it as simple as you possibly can. I'm also trying to make things simple for anglers, because I don't like the overcomplication of things. I don't like the overcomplication of rigs, because the overcomplicatedness of carp rigs can lead to really big problems with fish, especially older fish, and you know they're priceless, and nobody wants to lose a carp.
No.
And you want to make sure that you're using the most simplest and easiest to use setup, in my mind. Carp feed by sucking and blowing. That's how they feed. They suck and blow at things. So if I'm using something that's stiff and they suck at it, it's not necessarily going to go in its mouth. It might be perfect for casting out, as they say, these resetting rigs, you cast it out, it doesn't tangle.
Yeah.
But when a carp sucks at it from 4 or 5 inches away, it won't necessarily go in its mouth, which might spook it. Whereas with my idea is that when a carp feeds, it sucks and blows. If you're using a bit of braid, it's nice and supple, fish comes up to it, it sucks at it, goes in its mouth. And okay, I hear the basis, people say, well, it can blow it out again. Yeah, it can, but at the end of the day, the main principle of a rig is to get the bait into the carp's mouth and not spook it. Whereas I do think a lot of these stiffer setups, certainly with chod rigs, you get a lot of people who use chods, and they get a lot, and I'm not saying they don't work, because they do, it's down to confidence, but you do get a lot of people getting hook pulls with chods because the hook's not set properly, because the fish has literally got to get that bait on a stiff short boom, remember, in its mouth. So it's got to go over the top of it. If it sucks at it from 6 inches away, it's not necessarily going to go in its mouth. So
I get that rationale. There's also a fair old trend, especially now in modern times, of sort of stiff boom sections, little short pop-ups. Where are you on the guise of sort of pop-ups versus fishing on the bottom?
If you're putting baits out there that are on the bottom, then my hook bait's going on the bottom. Simple as that. Yeah. You know, it's about camouflage, and that's how I was brought up with carp fishing, is try and make things as natural in appearance to the carp. Don't make any noise, keep things nice and quiet, don't scare them, don't use a bait that looks completely different to the free offerings. So if you're using a bed of boilies that are all on the bottom of the lake bed, don't use a hook bait that is, that's 6 inches off the deck. It's not going to look like it's a safe free offering for the fish to pick up. It doesn't always work, you know, it's not foolproof the way I fish. I always think that if you found something that works for you, 99% of the time it will work for you on every single lake you go to.
So here's a question, flipping it on its head. Do you think there's ever been a situation, and you do a lot of different styles of angling, I know your angling personally is big fish, if you like fishing, you want to catch the big one, but have you been on any venues throughout your filming with Avid, or maybe some of these day ticket pressured venues, where you think that rig has potentially cost you bites?
Absolutely, mate, yeah, definitely.
Yeah?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. There are riggy fish, without a doubt. Lakes like where we're fishing today, which is a day ticket lake, it sees lots of different approaches. The fish rely on the angler's baits. They're picking up rigs all the time. They are very wary of rigs, and on these kind of lakes, I always think that I am one step behind everybody else, because my rig isn't really suited to this kind of fishing, because it can be easily ejected, and also you get those possibilities where I'm fishing in the minute quite long lengths of hook link. I'm probably using about 8-9 inches. I know I might catch a fish out of here. I certainly did last time I came here, but you know,
you caught the big one, didn't you?
I did catch the big one, yeah, but it might cost me fish. You know, most big fish generally they're a bit more greedier than other fish, whereas you get a lot more wary fish that are a little bit more I'm not picking that up because I've been caught a few times before and stuff.
So instead of chopping and changing, fix with something that's worked for you historically.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying, yeah.
The rest of that rig, you've got your sort of, I'm going to say supple braided hook length. Length-wise, what do you sort of, I know you vary it with the sort of softness of the drop and the bottom and stuff, but generally as a starting point, what would you go with?
Generally about 8 inches, but if I'm using PVA bags, which is obviously a concentrated pile of bait, I will shorten the hook length down to about 4 inches on some occasions, because you know you're offering something completely different. But if I'm using just boilies over a bed of bait, then 8 inches, and I will use even longer than that if I'm fishing over the top of very lightly silt or a bit of algae, just to give the rig a little bit more movement and play with regards to casting out and burying the lead and what have you. So
the hook section. Talk to me about hook patterns, talk to me about the arrangement and hook bait mounting on there, mate. I
like to use curved hooks a lot of the time, and I will use liner liners because I believe in liner liners. I believe in the, again, confidence going back 30 odd years when the bent hook rig came out in carp fishing. If you got rid of the bentness and just used a bit of tubing, you can still create the same angle, but when you're playing the fish, it straightens out, it's not causing the mouth damage. So I incorporate now liner onto all of my setups just to create that bent hook shape, because I think it just increases the chances of hooking in the bottom lip. And you know, I'm happy doing it on size 2s, size 4s, size 6s, size 8s, all different sizes. You don't need everything to create the confidence.
The attachment of that, is it a normal knotless knot? How many turns? Give me the sort of how you line that up, because obviously that's a massive deciding factor in terms of like what hook bait you might be using, the hook holds you're getting. How does all that play? Because for all intents and purposes, I'm digging into something that is very, very simple, but also is very effective, mate. You've caught big carp home and abroad time and time again. It clearly does work. So talk to me about the sort of intricacies of this sort of hair arrangement, if you like, the hook bait attachment and all that.
I like to have the hair pivot opposite the point of the hook, which is roughly about 13 turns down.
Okay.
I use a knotless knot, 13 turns whipped around the shank and then through the back of the eye, and then I'll nip on a liner, and then I will generally use just a standard bottom bait, which is pretty tight to the bend of the hook, and away you go. As simple as that.
Isn't it?
I know.
I remember going out with you, I can't remember where we first fished, it might have been Girton, it might have been somewhere, and I remember thinking, there's got to be a bit more to it, do you know what I mean? Like, you see the amazing carp you've caught, you hear about it, and then you see just, as you say, like, there isn't any doubting, there's extreme confidence in it, and it goes out there. There's not even a question if you haven't caught or whatever, it's not about the rig in any sense, whereas nowadays I think a lot of the emphasis for anglers out there, if they don't catch, will be not that the fish aren't there or the spot's wrong, it'll be that their rig was insufficient or they could have done something different on the rig front to be able to prompt a take.
Yeah, which I believe you can do, I do, and I definitely sacrifice bites on occasions by not using some of these latest rigs, and I've fished alongside most of the high profile carp anglers out there. One example I'll give you now is fishing alongside Frank Warwick, who I think is one of the most inventive carp anglers around. And I fished on Birch Grove Syndicate with Frank years ago now, probably about 20 years ago, and Frank was getting more bites than me.
Right.
You know, because he was using
wizardry,
absolute wizardry, and he was getting more bites than me, but he was losing the odd one, you know, which I myself, I don't like losing fish. You sit here for so long, when you hook them, you want to make sure that you land them. And of course I still get hook pulls. I'm not saying that rigs aren't important, because they are massively important to carp fishing, but I do believe that it is the confidence side of things that is more important than a lot of these. You've got to add this. If you don't add this, you'll not catch carp. What? If I've given them a bit of advice, I want them to go away and have a bit of confidence that what I've told them is based on something that I'm being, you know, 100%
I think people
about.
see that, mate, as well. It's not, you're not selling them swivels or whatever, so to speak, mate. You're giving them as you see it, as you've experienced, and that's the thing that nobody can really take away. The amount of years you've done it for, and the amount of different variety of big fish you've caught, as well as day ticket fish that you're doing now. You can't sort of bypass that experience, mate. You've been there, done it, got the t-shirt.
I've caught carp from over 400 different waters, mate. 400, that's a lot of waters. There's a few that I've blanked as well, but I'm talking about small waters, commercial waters, rivers, canals. Now that rig has basically been the mainstay of my fishing.
That's mad.
So to turn around and say that it's not very good, which people do, oh, it's a noddy rig and all this kind of stuff, well, it catches fish. It might not be the best rig to use today on this lake in this kind of situation. Might have to change things and what have you, but I think if you make things confusing for yourself, then you can end up making carp fishing hard. And in all fairness, carp fishing isn't hard if you understand carp more than you do the rigs. People want to know about rigs and bait, the shortcuts, but they don't want to know about the fish that they're trying to catch. They don't want to understand the fish that they're trying to catch. That's what you're trying to catch. How does it live its life? Where does it go to on a day-to-day basis? How does it survive? How does it feed? They're not interested. They want the shortcut, which is, if I put that hook tight round 3 times and do that, well, the fish do that. Oh, what the hell, mate? Come on. Come on. I get you. Yeah, but what they do is they do this, and they get some salesmen telling them out. The fish does this, and it moves around and does that. What? If you tie another loop round it, it'll do that. You what? It don't work like that. You either understand the carp fishing or you don't understand. And if you don't understand carp fishing, then it's hard for you because it becomes complicated.
The other thing that I was going to speak to you about, and I know it's a big thing for you because we talked about it before, is the principle, because primarily you're a big fish angler, you target the big one, is the principle of big carp baits. Some baits being more attractive, more powerful, better at catching the big carp rather than just numbers. It's something you firmly believe in, isn't it?
Yeah, massively, mate, massively believe in that. I was kind of brought up as a young kid on the writings of Rod Hutchinson, Kev Nash, Tim Paisley, lots of different people who have different views on carp fishing. But one of the things that Rod had, I think, more advantageous to everybody else is he had a real good understanding of carp, and he'd done a lot of research into carp and how they feed and how they survive. And I liked that kind of approach, and it sort of struck a chord with me, and I could relate with it. And Rod turned around to me and he said, look, Crowy, when you're going carp fishing, there's 2 things you want to think about. Do you want to be the top rod on a lake, or do you want to catch the big uns? And I was like, okay, well, I'd rather catch the big uns. He said, well, if you want to catch big uns, use a fish meal bait. Okay, and if you want to get lots of bites, then use something nice and bright, visual and smelly. It made complete sense with me. And then when he explained it a little bit further, he said that the majority of big fish are older fish. Now, older fish generally will have a completely different appetite to a younger fish. Same as humans do. Babies prefer, or younger kids prefer, different foods to older kids. Johnny at school might not like a curry, but as he gets to his 40s and 50s, he likes a curry. Do you know what I mean? Because your taste buds are changing. You walk into a shop nowadays, you've got puppy food, you've got dog food, you've got kitten food, you've got cat food. There's thousands upon millions upon billions of pounds research gone into looking at the dietary needs and requirements of all different species, including fish. The point I'm getting to here is that I believe that a carp cannot come along and see 2 baits and go, that's a big fish bait, and that one's not a big fish bait. It won't know the difference. But a big fish bait has more of a chance of attracting those really old fish that have been maybe caught a few times over the years. They're a bit more savvy, a bit more wary. Their diets change, so there's certain ingredients in those baits which will stimulate those bigger fish more than the younger fish. To give you some examples, when we worked at Carp Talk, which was a magazine that ran for 24 years, I was on the news desk for 24 years dealing with different catch reports. You saw the different trends between different baits and when they came along, and there was massive trends in, I'm thinking back 25 years ago when the Grange came out for mainline. You didn't just see 1 or 2 big fish getting caught on it. You saw all of the big fish in the country, the hardest fish in the country, the ones that don't get caught very often at all, tripping up on that bait. Now, it was not just a coincidence, it was a trend that went on for a few years until another big fish bait came out, such as Nash's Scopex squid or Sticky's krill or DNA's bug, you know, in more recent times. There's certain things in those baits that stimulate those big wily fish to trip up. And you know, these fish might only get caught once every 2 or 3 years, but why are they tripping up on these baits on a regular basis? But there's something about them, and this was something that Rod kind of installed in me, is that a big fish, an older fish, will just have completely different dietary requirements to a younger fish, which might, you know, a small young fish, it's just recently been stocked, it'll go around picking everything up. You know, he might come out 10 times this first year, and then the next year he might come out 6 times, and he might come out three times. And obviously, as it's getting older and older, it's changing, and it then needs something to stick. He knows there's danger around there. He knows that it's got to feed, but something makes it drop its guard. And I do firmly believe that bait gives you a massive edge over rigs, more than rigs. I'm not saying rigs is not important. You know, ultimately for me, the most important thing about catching carp is understanding them. Watercraft.
Yeah.
Then I think it's bait. Okay. Then I think it's rigs.
For you, if you were coming to this, let's say the scene now, and you wanted to single out big carp, and you're looking at bait choice, how would you go about deciphering that? Would you look at catch reports and see what bait is producing big fish? Would you look at historical, maybe if you're targeting one fish, historical captures and what that's been on?
Yeah, definitely.
What would you do? How would you decipher it? Because as you said, there's loads of baits out there, mate, isn't there?
Yeah, there's lots of different baits out there. If you're not a sponsored angler, then God, you could choose any bait, couldn't you? You know, you go to a lake, and certainly the target fish that you want to catch, understand the target fish you want to catch. What does it get caught on? Does it get caught on, I don't know, a fruity kind of bait? Does it get caught more on an oily bait? Whatever. Does it get caught mostly from this swim? Does it get caught from that end of the lake? Does it get caught? Lots of different things to consider. You know, for me, I would be looking at probably some of the more recent inventions by the latest bait companies, because they're all one step ahead of everybody at the moment. They've got thousands of pounds research into different baits. They're developing baits on a regular basis. They've got a lot more insight into bait than I have, and I put my trust into a lot of those bait companies and say, right, what's coming out in the next few years? Anything good? And if I notice a trend on a particular bait where it's doing a lot of big fish recently, then and it's a new bait, my advice is to get on it as soon as possible, because you really can get some great catches on getting on a new bait early.
And we're going to talk captures later, mate, because you've had some incredible ones. But in terms of size of bait for you, you've changed it in relation to targets, haven't you? I remember you talking to me about Spitfire pool and your captures there, and how you changed to smaller up baits and stuff because of the nature of that carp. Yeah. So you are not just a big fish out and out 24mm boilie man. You do vary it as well in terms of size. Yeah.
Talking about that wood common at Spitfire pool, it's actually got a strange mouth.
Right.
And its mouth is like quite not damaged by hooks, but it's kind of inturned.
Okay.
Like that on one side. Most of the time you don't see in the photographs because people put the photograph of the other side on, where it looks immaculate, but it's the other side of its mouth. And it took me, I think it was my second trip there, Rich Wilby, the owner, turned around to me and said, Wood Common's got a slightly damaged mouth. So as soon as he told me that, I'd gone from using bigger baits straight down to smaller ones, because it's just an observation of understanding the fish that you're trying to catch. Has it got a funny mouth? Has it got a big mouth? If it's got a big mouth, then use big baits.
Yes.
If everybody's using small baits, then use big baits. Give yourself an edge. There's loads of different ways you can look at carp fishing, but if you simplify it by understanding the fish and the target that you're going for, I don't think you'll go far wrong.
That's the key thing I've seen. Is simplicity, something that you've got confidence in, bait, location being paramount, then bait, rig secondary, mate. It's all
important. I'm not saying that rigs ain't important, and I never have done it. If anybody says that I have, then show me where I have, because it is massively important. It's just not as important as understanding carp, understanding the fish that you're trying to catch.
Well, mate, you've caught them. Hopefully, those rigs will catch us a few here as well, mate, over the course of time. Yeah. But thanks for a little insight. I'm going to put the kettle on, mate, because that wind is freezing, boys.
You've got a dewdrop on the end of that nose, haven't you?
But that nose dewdrops all the time, mate. You have to edit them out. Some clever editing, Giacomo. But cheers, mate. I'm going to get the kettle on.
All right, dude.
Right, mate, talk to me, okay? I know we're not at your typical type of venue, but you are the quintessential big carp angler, mate, aren't you? You're not interested in bites, are you?
No, not really, not nowadays. Not unless I'm doing a feature like this. I'd like to catch one at the minute they're porpoising over us, but big fish mindset really is more to do with having that tunnel vision of wanting to catch just big fish, and that's where I'd say if anybody fancies doing a bit of big fish hunting, you've got to get that mindset right. I'm going to sit here, I'm going to go through the blanks.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in just getting fish after fish after fish. I'm wanting that one particular fish. You've got to have a tunnel vision for it. You've got to have a mindset that you are prepared to sit through those blank hours, because it is difficult. Doesn't matter how long you've been carp fishing. Sometimes in the winter months I can go, and I fish quite a lot.
Yeah.
I can go 40, 50 nights without a bite. And to keep going,
Yeah.
time after time, hoping that next bite is going to be the one that you're after, it does take some kind of, mental strength to do it.
Where's that come from? Because, I mean, I'm thinking about a lot of anglers that I know. Realistically, there are very few that will go 40, 50 nights without a bite. They'll either change location, go to a venue where they're going to get some bites. I don't know what they'll do, but they won't stick it out for that long. It's a very small faction, if you like, that will do that. Where do you think that all comes from for you, mate?
With me, I think I've kind of learned it over the years, if I'm honest. I think when I first started carp fishing, it's fair to say I didn't really care what I caught. I just wanted to catch anything that was in there. Carp fishing has changed over the 40 years that I've been carp fishing, and in those days you just wanted to catch that mythical carp. Didn't matter how big it was, and it was a lot harder. Whereas nowadays, I've fished an awful lot of different venues, and I just, over so many years of carp fishing, you've done the bites, you've done the day ticket stuff, you've done the foreign fishing. You kind of want something that gives you that satisfaction of, right, I've achieved something, and it is catching those bigger fish now from harder waters. Not necessarily the venues that's only going to give me one bite in a year, but the more challenging venues. And I've kind of developed it, and I'm sure most of my friends, like Briggsy, that I used to fish years ago, and places like Cassian, will tell you that I used to go chasing bites in those days. 20, 30 years ago, I'd be fishing likes of casting for 2 weeks with Steve. He'd plot up in the same swim, stay there for 2 weeks, and during that 2 weeks I might fish half a dozen different swims. I might catch half a dozen fish, the biggest 20 pounds, but Steve had got that big carp mindset of staying in the same swim. You get one bite and it's 50, 60 pounder. And and I kind of learned it from the likes of him, from Rod Hutchinson and people like that. And
so it is an influence thing. Do you reckon it's a geographical thing? You're always sort of synonymous with sort of fishing up north, and maybe, I mean, especially sort of maybe less in latter years, but traditionally there was less fish, if you like. You weren't getting numbers and numbers of big fish, were you? It was just individual potential big fish, and you were sort of, I don't know, if you wanted to catch them, it weren't catching numbers and you were going to get them, it was having to go and target, wasn't it?
Yeah. The target fishing it's really what I do nowadays. That's what I really enjoy doing. And I'd say that when I was in my 30s, which is 25 years ago now, I would think about, I'd like to go and target that fish down south. And in those days, I had kids, family, and you're that kind of age where you've got loads of, I want to do that, but you can't actually go and do it. I tried to go down south and target waters down south, which was 3 or 4 hours drive away, and you then compete with the local anglers. It gets very difficult. So then I started targeting more waters closer to home in Yorkshire, where I live. And they're a lot smaller, but I started targeting the local waters, and from there, when you started catching the ones that you wanted, it was like, oh right, I'll go to that water next, I'll go to that venue. Then you sort of set your sights, and it just became more enjoyable. I felt like there was a sense of achievement there, because with the greatest respect to these kind of commercial lakes, they're here for a purpose, which is to serve the guys that don't really go fishing as much as the likes of me. I go fishing all the time. And when you go fishing all the time, you're seeking a different result to the guy that only goes fishing once every couple of 3 months. He wants to get a couple of bites. He wants to catch a carp.
Because it's the only time out.
It's the only time out. So it's a completely different market. And this is the great thing about carp fishing, because there is no end goal that we all have to go for. You just go for what you want, don't you? You go for your enjoyment, and you might go to escape work, escape normal life, just to come to the lake for a couple of days. Some people might just want to go surface fishing, go French fishing, and some people like going fishing for, can we call them wrong-uns? Some like go fishing just for carp. They don't really care, So it's here to serve everybody, isn't it? So
you talk there about long periods of inactivity, long periods of like blanking. The process of sort of targeting a specific carp. How do you pick your targets? How do you is it based on looks? Is it based on heritage? Is it based on sort of acclaim? What goes through your head when you think, right, okay, I've got a season ahead of me. I'm going to go here, 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 and hopefully catch these. How does that all play out for you, mate?
Me as an angler and what feels right for me at the time, and target fishing for me, it changes year on year. Last year, I was fishing lakes with 50 pounders in. The year before that, I was fishing lakes with 60 pounders in. This particular year now, I'm probably fishing for upper 40s, potential 50 pounders this year in England. So
Is it one fish, or are you fishing for a number of 40 pounders? Or
no, numbers don't interest me at all nowadays. No, not at all. I actually think that fishing for numbers nowadays can be a little bit soulless for me. You know, just I've had 27 40s this year or whatever. It doesn't really mean a great deal to me anymore, and it might mean something to somebody else, but I notice with some of these Carp Angler of the Year things that they do nowadays, it's based on how many numbers of fish you catch, which I think is a little bit soulless, because you could be on the same lake just catching the same fish over and over again, repeat captures, yet you've got other lads going fishing for a carp that doesn't get caught once every 5 years. It might get caught. It's a completely different type of challenge, and what is the right way about it is, as I say, it's down to yourself. But for me, this year it's mostly about going to a lake that I actually enjoy being at, and feeling comfortable at, feeling that this is the place for me, this is where I want to fish. A nice syndicate, good bunch of lads, accessible obviously, somewhere that I can get to quite easily, and somewhere which works for my lifestyle, because I am busy with my job. And when you're target fishing, you've got to stay in tune with the lake. You've got to stay in tune. You've got to know what's going on. You're going around the lake regularly, walking it, seeing where the fish are, seeing which swims are producing fish, where the bites are coming from. You know, you've mapped out the swims, you know what you're doing, and it's piecing the jigsaw together, because target fishing, there's lots of different pieces to it. It is not just a case of getting the rig, bait, the latest gear and casting out and sitting and waiting. You can make things happen for yourself by pattern spotting. You notice certain patterns. There's no one, you know, like a particular fish will get caught all around the lake, but the majority of its captures are in that corner. So if you want to increase your chances of catching it, go fishing that corner. You might get caught over there next week, but it's got a better chance of catching it in that corner. Same with baits. Might come more on a fish meal bait, might come more on.
And you're prepared to do that waiting in that corner, aren't you? You're not going to sacrifice chasing around. You're going to fish because that's got form and that is the pattern that's sort of predominant. You're going to stick it, and if you do get that bite, you might not get 20, but that one bite will be that fish.
Yeah, that's the kind of way that I think nowadays.
What about other aspects? You said being in contact with it. While you're being in contact with the venue, obviously you've got information coming in, but you're regularly visiting it. Are you applying bait? Is pre-baiting a thing that you use, or is it just being and having eyes on the water?
Yeah, definitely. Every lake is different. This year I've got probably 3 or 4 different lakes I'm a member of, where I've got targets in mind. The main focus is another lake which is not too far from here in Lincoln. And that's my main focus. That's the one that I'm staying in tune with. But last night when I went down to the lake, I was chatting to one of the lads who is in tune with that lake, and what he's doing is he's walking around baiting spots and then fishing, you know, in certain areas at certain times of the day, and he's in tune with it and he's making it work for himself. And when I eventually go at that lake, that's the kind of thing that I'll do. But my current main target lake, pre-baiting doesn't really work on there because it's quite a busy water. And pre-baiting, you could be pre-baiting for other people rather than yourself.
So there's obviously the numbers in terms of people that, and you must have seen it on certain venues, especially now. Angling is busy, isn't it? And parameters change, like you said, from venue to venue. The identification of that place to fish, you said it's somewhere you like, but we're talking about this target element. For you, a carp that you'll target, is it a scroll on Instagram and you go, ooh, I'd like that one? Or is it, I don't know, is it some other means that a carp gets into your sort of vision and you choose to go for it rather than maybe say, actually, no, I don't want to do that one?
Bit of everything what you just said, really. There are some fish, let's say a couple of years ago, I wanted to catch a 60 pounder from England. And then once I caught that fish, a 60 pounder doesn't mean anything to me anymore because I've had one. And that's not to say that I don't want to catch one.
You'd shake one off,
no, that's not to say I don't want to catch one, and that's not to say that it's not an achievement catching one. That was my goal at that particular time, was to get a 60 pounder. And that lake, I could get one. And eventually I got it, but now my goal has slightly changed, where I do now, I'm looking at a couple of fish in my syndicate water, one of which is probably the best looking carp, one of the best looking carp in England.
Wow.
And it's called the trouty. And it's not the biggest fish in the lake, but it is an I know full well that if I caught that fish in the right light levels and you get the right picture, you could be looking at potentially one of the best pictures in England of a carp.
Wow.
If it's taken right. It is such a stunning carp.
Coming from a man who's done Carp Talk and seen so many carp photos, that's a big shout as well, mate.
That would have definitely been in what we used to call at Carp Talk's most wanted list.
Yeah.
It was gold standard. Absolutely, just a beautiful carp. And I think, I can't remember, but I think it may have even been in Carp Talk's most wanted. You could be looking at a fish that everyone in England will go, where the hell has that come from?
Nice.
Which is a special carp.
You'll have it, mate. It's a matter of time.
It's not an easy carp to target, though. It really ain't, mate. It's not. It's one of these fish that goes missing for a couple of 3 years.
And crops up.
It's quite a busy lake, and it randomly comes out in loads of different places. So, if the stars align, you never know.
For you, on the final bit of punishment on this sort of big carp mindset, the people that are out there doing it now in terms of big carp and targeting them, for you, do you think that is easier in the modern day sense of the word, or do you think that's a harder challenge than maybe historically how it was, if you like?
Armed with the knowledge, technology that we have today, if you took that back in time, it would be a lot easier back then.
Yeah.
But looking at it today, carp fishing is very busy now. It's
Yeah,
very, very busy. It is busy banks on every lake. You know, today midweek.
Yeah.
It's not even a bank holiday yet. Nearly all the swims are taken on the lake here. This is just a day ticket lake. That's the kind of scenarios you've got. There are lakes around that I could go to today that are quite quiet.
Yeah.
Of course there are, but generally those kind of lakes haven't switched on yet. The anglers that know them and that are keeping their eyes on them know that it's probably not the best time of year to go there. If you know a carp is ready to get caught in this day and age, it's going to be busy.
Yeah.
I enjoyed fishing back then and I enjoy fishing now. What do I prefer? I'd say back then to now, because I am very much I think you probably know this, I'm a bit of a loner, like my own company, fishing on my own, like keeping away from the busyness of lakes and fishing. And when I was younger growing up, the lakes weren't so busy, so I'd have probably enjoyed it a bit more back in those days. But back then, I was just a bites angler. I just wanted to catch fish. You know.
Do you think if you'd have done the Yateleys, the likes of Burfield, the Black Mirror, do you think you would have got more kudos than maybe somebody who stayed and just fished in the north? Bearing in mind that there was a lot more attention on those southern waters with those carp, wouldn't there? I often think like the amount of attention on those carp.
Yeah.
They were the ones to catch, but they're amazing carp up north that maybe have been sort of, maybe not as detailed written about in terms of coverage.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this. Carp Talk, when it was going, we had catch reports from all over the country. 50 pounders up north, 60 pounders down south, 50 pounders in the Midlands, 40 pounders in Scotland. And even now, there has been an almost saturation, I think, of some of the southern venues. And that's not to say that those venues aren't worthy of the praise that they get, because they absolutely are. Carp fishing history was made in Yateley, Raisbury and places like that.
Yeah.
But when you see people doing these kind of things on social media nowadays, the 10 best carp caught ever in England. And then they put 3 of them in Yateley North Lake or Yateley South Lake or Yateley wherever lake.
Yeah.
You kind of think, hang on a minute, guys. And they don't mention a 48 pounder or a 47 pounder caught from Scotland.
Yeah. Epic.
You kind of sit there and think, hang on a minute, there's a little bit of bias there. So some of the northern carp, I think, over the years have been very, very special, and they get ignored.
Yeah, they do.
And they get ignored through, not ignorance, but just through familiarity more than anything, because we're all familiar with places like Yateley and those kind of lakes, absolutely legendary lakes. Even to this day, I wanted to catch a Yateley 30 pounder only a couple of years ago. And I did it, and I was like, wow, I felt really good about it. Because it's a special place. It's Yateley at the end of the day. But living in the north, the lakes in the north definitely do get forgotten about and ignored by a lot of the guys fishing down south.
Do you think the likes of yourself, Terry, and that big fish mindset, do you think it's lost, as in there won't be anglers like that in the coming generations?
Again, this is a subject I was only talking about the other day. I actually put something on my Facebook page, and it was a quick question: big fish or bites? I would have guessed it would have been big fish that would have won it, but the majority of people wanted bites. And I think that's a generational thing. I think definitely nowadays we have got to the stage where people go carp fishing just to catch fish.
Yeah.
And if a big one comes along, great. But to sit there through that big fish mentality, it takes a completely different person, a different type of mindset, and also a different type of interest. Because if you look at a lot of the guys that work in the trade doing my job, which is this sponsored angler as a full-time job, the majority of us are of that absolutely addicted to carp fishing to the point that you'll just go fishing all day long with that one fish in mind. Yeah. And that kind of mentality, it's only amongst a few people nowadays, I think. And probably more of those people of my age, probably less of your age, less of the next generation, you know. And it's kind of different. It changes, I think. I think there's not so many younger kids now coming into it that have got that mindset of wanting to just catch big fish.
I think venues have changed, social media's changed. It's that sort of not constant need, that sounds a bit negative, but wanting to put fresh pictures up, wanting to sort of have that all the time, and venues have got more big fish in them. But I think you nailed it when you said it's unique, different in terms of mindset. It's certainly a mindset that you've got that I could not put myself through that. I look at it with the utmost respect and admiration to what you've caught, but also knowing even a percentage of sort of going through the blanks, that sort of isolation, being alone, being on the lake where you know categorically it's not on, but being there just so that you might glean a little bit of something. Mate, hats off to you, and that is why you've caught what you've caught and you are who you are, mate. So I'm massively thankful that hopefully I'm not in the big carp mindset here and we get some bites, because it looks good.
I want to catch something today, mate, because I'm a carp hungry.
You'll catch a 40 pounder, mate, or something. Will. Oh, hopefully catch
just get something at the end of the day. That's the, you know, the main goal today. I mean, it's gone flat calm now. Conditions have completely changed.
We've seen them though, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've seen them.
I think we've got a much more better chance now than we had earlier, because the fish that we've been seeing showing have mostly been on the back of the wind. We've had a really cold wind blowing down here. Yeah. And now it's flattening off. You never know, they might start moving out of there. We might start getting a few bites, mate.
Fingers crossed though, mate. If you're enjoying this video or any of the other videos you've seen on our channel, make sure that you like them, subscribe and click the little bell notification. That'll let you know when a new video is uploaded. This was meant to be a romantic segue over a campfire, mate, but what's happened is, in classical spring terms, it's chucked it down with rain. We have had a bit of food. We've had no action on the rods apart from that occurrence earlier, mate. But I wanted to talk to you about big carp stories. You've caught loads of them. I wanted you to try and sort of select 3 chapters or 3 captures for whatever reason that sort of stick more prominently in your mind, mate. Let's go back in time. Let's go the sort of earliest one that you can remember. Give me some context of time.
I'd actually say that probably one of my most favourite carp that I've ever caught in my life is not one of my biggest, but it's quite big for Yorkshire, and it's going back to 2009, and it's a fish that's called the Nostell fish because it was at Nostell Priory, which is a National Trust heritage site. It's got 3 lakes there, the top lake, the middle lake and the bottom lake. Absolutely glorious grounds, like all National Trust properties. Yeah. And the top lake had what I would class as being one of the most iconic and famous carp in Yorkshire when I moved to Yorkshire, which was in the early 1990s. And when I moved to Yorkshire to go to university, there was 2 fish to catch. One was the motorway pond fish, and the other one was the Nostell fish. And luckily for me, I caught the Nostell fish in 2009. It was in a lake that was run by the club's called Wakefield Angling Club, one of these match orientated clubs, and it had a lake which was a specimen lake. And the lake itself is 20 acres in size, very, very shallow, very weedy, with some really, really old carp that dated back to the 70s, and they'd grown ever so steadily over the years. And it ended up being a mid 40-pound mirror, which was a massive fish in Yorkshire. Even now it's still a big fish in Yorkshire, but it's a homegrown one with genetics going back to, you know, can we call it English carp in inverted commas? I know it's a debatable
Let's start
topic.
that debate, mate.
Yeah, completely debatable topic, but it was the carp to catch in Yorkshire really, because it was a fish that was often seen and rarely caught. And in this particular lake, when I fished there was no night fishing on there. It was all day only fishing. Arrival at what they called in those days lighting up hours, which is from first light when the street lights came on until when they got turned off in the evening. That was the time when you could fish on that lake, and it was 50 miles away from my house. Only rumours 10, 15 carp in there on
20 acres.
Over 20 acres, yeah, but it's 20 acres of really shallow water, lots of back bays, lots of weed. Very easy for them to escape even sightings. And the actual saying on the lake was, amongst a lot of the locals, they're hard to find but easy to catch. So you've got to find them, but you couldn't find them because they just used to lose themselves amongst the weed, and you'd often see people walking around there for days upon time and not seeing any sightings of any fish in there. And you could go seasons without catching on there. Quite a tricky lake, very tricky lake.
Yeah.
Really old carp that's seen all the pressure over the years. And I first started fishing on the lake in, I think it was 2007 when I bought a ticket there. And I was lucky enough, very, very lucky enough and fortunate enough on my first ever trip to catch a fish from there, which was what I really needed to really give me some momentum to try and catch that carp eventually. And keep sticking with it, because I knew it was always going to be a challenge. And I actually didn't see the big fish in there, the big mirror in there, which was just called Big 'Un. Very Yorkshire.
Classic.
Yeah, classic Big Un. Didn't see it until my second season on the lake, and all the rumours were still that it's gone, you know. In those days, you didn't have like social media as we know it today. You had what was called fishing forums, and there was one called the Northern Carp Fishing Forum, and I remember people writing on there, why is he fishing on that lake? Everyone knows it's not there, and referring to the Big 'Un. But I knew it was there. I knew people that had caught it, and I knew reliable people who'd seen it, so I knew what I was after, and I stuck with it. It was one of those lakes that you couldn't really fish in the winter months. It was pointless, certainly from where I lived over in East Yorkshire, to drive 50 miles over to the lake and pursue what was a myth at the time, and to keep going with it. Your best times on there was like spring, sometimes in summer, but late summer, very, very tricky because it became a football field. It was just grass everywhere. There was just weed all over the place, and you couldn't fish effectively in there. So you got that period in spring when you could fish it, and possibly a chance in the autumn time as well. Whether you wanted to commit though to driving from East Yorkshire, where I lived, to the lake 50 miles away to just fish for a few hours, because at the time as well I was working at Carp Talk, which is an office job.
Jeez.
So I was going backwards and forwards from the lake to where I lived, and first year I fished on there, I think I ended up with about 6 or 7 fish.
That's incredible, mate.
Yeah, did well, up to just over 30.
I'm guessing like next rod was nowhere near that. How were you catching them? Just finding them relentlessly?
Walking around, mate. Yeah, really, really finding my gear down. I know it's a bit of a cliche, find your gear down, and strip back, and it was anal stuff that I was doing, because I was walking around so often trying to find a fish, and to give you an example, I wasn't taking a bottle of milk with me, I was just taking a small amount of milk to give me a couple of cups of coffee for the day, and stripping back, just carrying a couple of leads rather than my tackle box, you know, and just a couple of spare hooks just in case I needed to re-rig and things like that. So I really was finding everything down, because even though the lake as a lake was 20 acres, the grounds of the lake, it was probably about 40 acres, so there's a little bit more walking to do.
Yeah.
And because you had to keep walking around to try and find them, and it was very difficult to pre-bait on that lake as well, because it was only a couple of feet, 3 feet deep in places maximum. Very, very open to the birds diving down. You bait somewhere and all the bait had gone in an hour from them diving down. Even just putting the bait out there, the seagulls were on it straight away. So it was almost pointless pre-baiting. A lot of your efforts was just physicalness. It was just walking around, fishing and where you thought the fish were, and hoping that you were going to catch something. Like I said, first year I did okay. Second year I did slightly better. I think I caught a couple of 30s that year, but I got my first sighting of the fish, saw the fish up close, got some rugged footage of it, so I knew it was there. And from the moment when I went onto the lake, I think it was caught in May 2009. I went on the lake early June, and then when I ended up pulling off the lake, there was only one capture of it, and that was the one that I caught.
No.
And it was in the April, I think it was 15th of April 2009, and I rocked up to the lake. I'd been around the lake the day before, having a good recce around there, looking for it, searching for it. Got no sightings whatsoever of any fish, and I was due to come back the next morning. And when you walked around the lake and didn't get any sightings, there was only really one option for you, and that was to fish the deepest end, which is near the bridge, because the Nostell Top Lake, it runs alongside the main road between Pontefract and Leeds, I think it is. And so you can walk along that bridge and look down into the water and see if there's any fish there. But there's a slightly deeper area to the back of it, and that's the area where they generally hung around. So if you didn't see anything when you walked around, that's the area that you fished, yeah. And I remember arriving to the lake, and it was absolutely chucking it down, thrashing down with rain. Got to the lake, and luckily there was nobody in the car park, and that was it. In my brain, I was heading to those deeper water swims on the dam wall.
Yeah.
Pushed the barrow down the field side, and I got to the swim, and the sun was just coming up. It was nice and warm, starting to get warm, but one of those really wet mornings. So the first thing I did is I got the bivvy up to try and dry it out. And as I was putting the bivvy up, got no rods out or putting the bivvy up, I just was pegging round, and at the corner of my eye, I just looked, and I saw what had to be the big and jump.
Jeez.
I know, yeah, it was one of those moments when it was meant to happen for me, and I saw the big and jump at the bottom of the path where I just walked down, and with that moment I heard the gate at the top of the path go, so somebody else had arrived.
Yeah, okay.
So I packed down as quickly as I could again, on the barrow, to the bottom of the path, got the rods out, and within about an hour of having the rods out, one of them was away.
No.
And I played this fish, and I was like, I know this fish. And it was this fish called the small linear, and it was the third time I'd caught it, so I was a bit gutted because I thought, oh no, that's it, I've spooked all the fish, that's my chance gone. And I'm sure that fish that I saw was the big one, and I'd never seen the big one top at all during the time that I'd fished the lake. And I'd only got from first light until about 1 o'clock when I was going to pull off and go to work, because I worked in the office.
Jeez.
And so I'd not got much time, and this happened probably about 10 o'clock in the morning. And I remember putting the rod back out, just only having another couple of hours of fishing, and I started to think about packing away, and at about 11 o'clock, my middle rod, the bobbin just dropped down, and I thought, oh no, I've got a bream on. Here we go, a bream. And I slowly walked to the rod, unclicked the bobbin, and then started to tighten up, expecting a bream on.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding you, Hass, this is going to be a really exaggerated version, but the rod just went, pulled out my hand, like, flipping heck, you know, and it just went, and it just motored. And the lake, as I said, is very shallow, only a couple of 3 feet deep where I was fishing. And I just watched this bow wave going across the lake. And bearing in mind, I'd caught quite a few fish out of this lake at this point.
Yeah.
And most of them were really old fish, you know, 30, 40 years old. They didn't fight much at all. This one was completely different to everything that I caught. And it went 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards.
Through loads
honestly,
of weed or not?
No, just through this shallow area, just through the shallow water. And, and my brain was going, it's got to be the big one. It's got to be the big one, you know. And it was just going so much. Yeah. And I was thinking, when's it going to stop? And eventually it stopped, and then I just heard this almighty slap on the surface out in the middle of the lake, where the fish had obviously stopped and just hit the water. And then it was just a really slow, dogged, all the way in, out round in an arc. That's a big sack of spuds on the end of there.
Yeah.
It can only be one fish, and I got my waders on, got the landing net on the top of my head so I could walk down the bank, because I needed to get to the front of these reeds. It was down to the left-hand side, and just stood there in the reeds with the landing net next to me, and slowly this fish, inch by inch, it worked its way in. And bearing in mind, I'd fished this lake, been there probably about, I don't know, 200 times during the course of three years. Lots of mileage, that is, backwards and forwards. Yeah. And sometimes I'd go twice a day, because I'd go in the morning, do my morning session there, go to work in the summer. This is in the summer months.
When you got longer evenings,
go to work, go to work, do a few hours in the office, because I had flexi hours at Carp as long as the job got done. And then I'd go back in the evening just to walk round and see if anything had changed when I was there in the morning. Got completely addicted to it, and watched this fish coming slowly, inch by inch, really slow and dogged. And I'll never forget it now. I've got the picture in my mind. I saw, because it was quite clear water, only a few yards in front of me, standing with a landing net, I saw this big scale on the shoulder of the fish. Giant scale, big sea scale on it. And I know that's the big one, that's the big one. And it didn't do anything other than just slowly, doggedly work its way into me. And then eventually I leant out with the net and it just went straight into the net first time. And there was no get in the net that you see on a lot of these things or anything like that. There was no emotions like that at all. It was just I've got it. I've got the one I want.
What is that emotion? Is it relief? Because there's a lot of effort in that fishing.
Yeah,
there's
massive amount of effort.
When you're talking days, that is exacting physically, like sleep-wise, travel, as you say, fuel, the likes of. There's a lot. It's effort fishing that days only, isn't it?
Yeah, it's massive effort, mate. Massive amount of effort. When you're trying to work, trying to live a normal life, but you've got this little thing in your head that is all it's thinking about. When you've got your kids, you're playing with your kids, but all you're thinking about is that carp. Oh, yeah. Selfish, completely one-tracked, horrible tunnel vision. But that's the obsession that carp fishing gives to you. And that obsession, when I landed that fish, it was almost like, that's it, you know.
Yeah.
And I can't explain it to you. It's a euphoric moment that even now, the emotions of catching that fish makes my heart beat, you know, a little bit faster.
Yeah.
It's a special fish for Yorkshire. It's a special fish for me. And I've caught carp twice the size of that in my life, including some whackers in England as well. But that particular carp at that moment, and I still to this day don't think there's been a carp in my career that I've put the effort into to catch and eventually got it. Because, as I say, over a 3-year period, the mileage, the hours, spent walking the banks. And I did a lot of, on that particular lake, I did a lot more walking than I probably did fishing, because I was very, very mobile. Barrow, light bits of gear, you know, a little shelter, little chair and things like that. And I was walking around trying to find them, trying to drop baits in front of them, because once you found them, most of the time you could drop a bait in front of them when they go down for it. But seeing that day, seeing that moment of that fish going in the net, incredible.
That's a capture. How big did it go?
It went 43.6, which was, at the time, not its biggest weight, it being caught at 45 pounds. But you're talking about, this is not a comparison at all in any way. No. Down south, you had the black mirror. Yeah. That was the fish, the cult fish, the one everybody wanted. It was from that lake that it was often spoke about, but never caught, never fished for, I should say. It was a special fish, the black mirror was. And there was no black mirror up north. But if there was a close rival to it up north in Yorkshire, it was that carp. It was special carp, and even to this day now, it's still very special to me.
Well, that's goosebumps for me, and I've not caught it, mate, so fair play. Another one, and a real big in this one, mate. We're going abroad, I think. You've done a bit abroad.
Yeah,
recent
done a
times.
lot abroad. Yeah,
I've seen you catch some whackers in Germany recently. I've seen you catch whackers everywhere. But this one, I think, when we were talking about doing this, I remember this sticking in my head because I remember seeing it on one of your vlogs. Right. And I remember watching those religiously because they are still absolutely brilliant, mate. I love the rawness of it, but that's what it is. I love them. And I remember seeing this and this fish and not knowing too much about the venue, but knowing its name and its sort of heritage and prestige, and thinking, well, that's the jewel in that crown, and you've got it all on tape. Do you know what I mean? I thought it was mega.
Talking about Rainbow.
I am.
Rainbow, yeah. Very, very famous lake, legendary lake. And even to this day, if I put anything up to do with Rainbow, it probably gets the most interaction out of anything that I do, because across the globe, it's a lake that everybody wants to fish. Carp anglers from Czechoslovakia, you know, Israel, wherever, they all want to fish at Rainbow Lake, and it still is an iconic lake even today. It's not got the biggest carp in the world in like it used to have, and at the time the biggest carp in the lake when I fished there, which was 2005 when we caught the fish that you're referring to, which was Eric's common. It was the biggest carp in the lake. It was actually the biggest common in the world at the time, and I think it had been caught at 93 pounds or 92 pounds by some Dutch anglers who caught it prior to I caught it. Wow. But when I caught it was 86.5 pounds. And it was quite a strange comedy of errors, and this happens often in carp fishing. Doesn't matter how experienced you are as an angler. I know a lot of the stories that people tell are always like everything went perfectly.
Yeah.
Well, if there's a session when it didn't go perfectly for me, it was when I caught Eric's, because I can remember having my breakfast and I was fishing in a peg called Peg 5, which is where it was notoriously known for getting caught from.
Yeah.
And I wanted to fish Peg 5 for the main reason that I knew that Eric's lived in that area. That was a fish that was catchable.
So it was a target.
So it was a target,
yeah.
and it was a fish. When I got the options of 3 or 4 swims, thanks to one of my friends booking the lake, I said I want 5 because Eric's lives there. And I was eating my breakfast this one morning, about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I just had what you get on Rainbow, which is literally like zzz, just going. If you're on fishing on the clutch, then or the bait runner, if you're fishing in open water, you just get screaming takes because they're just massive. The fish in there are huge. The situation is that you're fishing a lot of the time tight to snags, so you're fishing with braid.
Yeah, crazy.
So you don't get any beep 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 beeps. It's just like zzz, you know, tight fishing. And I put the breakfast down and realised which one it was. And at the time, Rainbow was slightly, the water level was slightly high.
Okay.
So the actual edge of the swim, you couldn't see. And I remember going for the rod, grabbed the rod, and as I grabbed the rod, you had to step into the boat to go to where the fish was, because it was down a channel to the left, which is probably about 100 yards out. I had a little pair of wellies on and ended up falling into the lake.
Class.
Fell over the edge, up to my waist, whilst these rods just blaring off. I was like, oh shit, you know, that time of the year, it was cold water and stuff, so, but your adrenaline's going.
Yeah.
And it was round to a channel to the left, and I've got 4 rods, which is what you're allowed to use on that lake, all spread out pretty close to one another, and needed to get into the boat. And as I'm getting myself out of the water, I don't know how this happened. You're not looking at what you're doing with the rod, it's being pulled, you know it's going to end up in a snag or something. And as I'm moving the boat, I've ended up pulling one of the other lines off one of my other rods onto my reel that I was playing Eric's with. So I started to reel whilst I was not looking, and I reeled some of the line off one of the other rods onto this reel. Don't even ask me how I did it, but it just happened. So then you're trying to untangle that, the fish is still going, you're looking at the bottle, which is how you fish at Rainbow. You fish with these surface bottles because you want your line going up to the surface bottle to keep the line off the snags that's underneath the water. But you can see where the fish is based on where the bottle is. And I saw the bottle end up in the back of this snag. It wasn't going anywhere. So I thought, all right, lost fish. So everything else I did pretty slowly. Untangled the line, got into the boat, made my way out to where the bottle was at the back of this bush. I got to the bush, and because of the gear that you're using at Rainbow, you're using really heavy gear because you're fishing in very, very tight snags and very, can we just call it, extreme conditions.
Yeah, there's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it. You're using 50-pound mono, and it just twists. You know what that kind of mono's like. You can't get a 50-pound mono that is just memory free, and it just twists when you take the tension off the line. It twists, and the bottles in the snag. You obviously have to go over the side of the boat, have a look at the bottle, see what's going on. And when you take the tension off the line around the tip just twists. It wraps around the tip, and I'm pulling at the bottle like this. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? I was just getting this. And the next minute, the bottle just came up with, and it just got pulled out of my hands.
Jeez.
And then the bottle's banging under the boat, under the boat. It's still on. Oh, and it's come out the snag. So I've grabbed the rod, and as I've grabbed the rod, the line's all twisted around the tip. And I'm like, oh no. You know, and I'm trying to untangle it all, and
it's going.
Not knowing I've got an 86-pound carp on the end,
God,
and it's pulling me and the boat round in a circle as I'm trying to untangle it. And as I'm trying to untangle it, eventually I've untangled it. Don't know how, but I did. The boat swung round. Next minute, I'm getting pulled to another set of snags. Even though you're trying to hold it as much as you can to try and keep the tension.
You're in a boat, though, aren't you? You're
in a boat. You're really restricted on what you can do. And the fish ended up in another set of snags, got to that side, freed it, don't know how, it just happened, and eventually I got it out into open water, and I managed to play the fish. And at Rainbow, it's quite murky water. In this particular area, it was like 12, 13 foot of water, but the top 2 feet, I'd say, are quite clear. But below that, it's really dark and dingy, and you can't see anything below. So as I've slowly started to gain some line on this fish, and at no point had I seen it, I was basically at the stage where just get in the net, don't care what you're on. I was really giving it some stick, giving it some bully, and eventually this fish just popped up And I've gone, and I saw its tail because it had a damaged tail, and I saw its tail, and no way could it be any other fish other than Eric's. And I've gone, oh my God, it's Eric's. And I've just been giving it stick, you know. And when you've got a weight like that on the end of the line, no matter how you try and pull that fish towards you, especially with a landing net, you push forward with the landing net and you go backwards.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get the fish into the net, and I had to use the engine, which wasn't down at that particular moment, so I had to drop the engine down, reverse it back, and get the fish into the net. And when I got the fish in the net, I just could not believe that I got it in, because it had been a comedy of errors where you could have think at so many points I could have lost that fish, but I ended up catching it. And then as I looked into the net, I thought, my name's really on this one, because the hook link had tangled around the lead clip and locked the lead in place. And not only had I caught Eric's common, I landed it whilst having a 12-ounce lead on, because that's what you use at Rainbow, 12-ounce leads. So I had a 12-ounce lead on, and this fish was like bundling along the, you know, the bottom of the lake with a 12-ounce lead on. And normally when the lead's on, the fish will stay deep. Take the lead off, they go higher and they're easier to play. But for some reason it ended up staying on the rig. So the point I'm getting at here is I was meant to catch
your
that
name's
fish that
on
day.
it, isn't
My
it?
name was on that fish. And as I say, it was a comedy of errors, and I've probably skimmed off so much of it. If you'd filmed it from start to finish and watched it, you'd have been laughing like crazy. But I managed to get it in. It's a PB carp, 86.5 pounds.
Mate.
Luckily I had Lee Morris in the next door swim with his cameras, and you know he's a good cameraman. He came over, took some great pictures of it for me.
That is definitely Eric's.
Got a great memory of it.
There you go, there's his tail, look at him. It's definitely the big old boy out the lake.
And even to this day, it still gives me little goosebumps when I think about it, because to catch the biggest carp from a lake is always a massive achievement. To catch the biggest carp at that time from Rainbow Lake, which is one of the most
prestigious,
iconic lakes in the world amongst global carp anglers, I was proper buzzing, mate. And to this day I still am about that fish. That fish for me, it's hard to top. I could go somewhere probably and get lucky and catch something bigger, but I'm happy with that one. I'm happy with that one, let's put it that way.
Well, I would be happy with half of that one, mate.
A really heavy fight, a really dogged fight, and when I saw it on the surface, like I say, I'm absolutely convinced it's the fish that everybody wants out of this lake. Quiet night last night, and nice misty morning when I woke. All the rods really quiet. Derek's not had anything either, and just sitting there having my breakfast, and my left-hand rod has just literally just melted off. One of those takes that you all sort of hear about. It was one of those, literally the tip's just gone melting round to the left, and fish, whatever was on the end, just surged off. And then it was a comedy of errors as I fell in up to my knees, got soaked, the boat got stuck. I got one of my lines all mixed up in one of my other lines, and into a snag, out of a snag, into a snag, out of a snag, and lo and behold, sometimes things are meant to happen for you. And what we've got here is the biggest fish in the lake, fish known as Eric's common, at 86.5 pounds. All I can say is take a look at this phenomenal fish, huge head on it, really huge head on it. You know, magnificent creature, 86.5 pounds, fish known as Eric's common. Let's have another little quick look at him.
Yeah. I've got some wicked video there, dude.
Oh, did you get some film on it?
Yeah, mate, filmed all that.
Yeah. There we go. One more look before we let him go. Eric's common. Dude, there he goes. Fantastic.
Final capture, something recent, mate. I've seen that in video form. You were on Girton and you were targeting a 60, weren't you?
Yeah, fish called Butthead, awful name, but just one of those fish that got named years ago in a different lake. It used to live in Pendle View, then about 10 years ago it got moved into Girton, and I think it was a low 50 at the time it got moved into Girton, and it grew to over 60 pounds. Still alive now, got caught in October last year, got caught in October, not publicised. I think it was 62.15 when it was caught by Shane the bailiff. But when I caught it, it weighed 64. So,
Wow.
you know, that was in May 2022. I was still working for Avid, like I do now. And Avid booked these dates for me throughout the year, saying, right, this is when we want to do this filming. Is there any kind of dates when you don't want us to do any filming? I'd said, right, don't want the last 2 weeks. The last week in May and the first week in June. I don't want to do anything then because I want to fish on Girton. That's when it comes out. And that's when it historically does make a regular capture. Girton over the years has been, its stock has been increased through flooding, and there's a massive amount of carp in there. I don't know how many now, probably about 1,000 carp. And if you want to catch fish on Girton, it's not hard nowadays, because there's a massive shoal of fish down one end of the lake. They tend to be down the bottom end, and if you fish amongst those shoal fish, you've got a great chance of catching fish.
Yeah.
But Butthead doesn't seem to live with those fish. It seems to live a nomadic life on its own, and I kind of plotted my area to fish and target that fish was in the middle part of the lake, where it's very deep. It doesn't tend to do big hits of fish, and it tends to do like one bite at a time, and they tend to be pretty decent. There's quite a few big ones in there now, and they do tend to live on their own. They do tend to be away from those shoal fish. So I'd set my stall at that middle area. I often had people walking past me whilst I was fishing on Girton, and they knew that I was targeting that area. They'd be looking at me going, any good crowing? I'd go, nothing, mate. All right, have you gone? Oh, I had 6 today, you know, and I kind of thought sometimes they were wondering what the hell I was doing, because, you know, you could go and catch half a dozen fish down there, but you're sitting there blanking. Why are you blanking? You're getting nothing. And I've done it weeks after weeks after weeks, you know, sometimes, but I've got these 2 weeks where I'd set my stall. I've been in one particular area, and nothing had happened during the first 5 days. I've not caught a thing. And that particular day I was due to do what they called an Instagram live for Avid, where I'd had to do with these little stories regularly during the course of 24 hours. Here I am on the bank. The last time I did one of these takeovers, you might remember that I was also on Girton, and on that occasion I was in Peg 7, which is known for being a bit more of a productive area, whereas this swim, it's a lot slower. It's got form for doing all 3 of the big uns, and to give you an idea, over the last couple of weeks that I know of, it's only done 2 bites, one of which was a 41-pound common, and the other one was a 46-pound mirror. I had to paint a picture of blanking, and the reason why I was blanking is because I'm trying to catch this big fish. So I then talk about the tactics of catching big fish. I sat there this one evening when the weather was perfect. It was perfect big carp conditions, which you see throughout your career, where you see little things that you can link. Yeah, I caught a big one on that day. That's the weather was right. There was a low pressure in, a little bit of drizzle, and it was warm and perfect sort of Maytime carp fishing weather. I remember sitting there thinking, if I'm going to catch a big one, it's going to be any time soon. I did this story. The last story I did was a picture of my feet crossed, sitting back on the bed chair with the bivvy door down, with like glass front on, you know, like the see-through plastic, and it was raining onto the bivvy door, and I put big fish conditions, and I had a coffee in my hand, and I had a single bleep. And bearing in mind on Girton, most of the bites are these beep, just one-toners off these really young, healthy, fit fish that just you know, one-tone things, and I had this beep. So I looked out the bivvy and beep. You know, I left the dog in the bivvy, zipped the door back up, and just walked to the rod, my left-hand rod, and I could see the bobbin just moving gently. Beep,
He's dancing.
And it was hardly doing anything, mate, just moving. I thought, is that a fish or not? And the night before, I had a line trailer where a fish had been swimming through me lines with a trailing rig, and it had given me, you know, the classic beep, 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 and I leant into it, and the line was pointing that way, and eventually it came off, and then the line, you know, pointed straight. So, is it a line trailer? I don't know. And then so I lifted into it, and I just felt this.
What? So you hit it? You
actually? Yeah, just leant into it. Yeah, just leant into these couple of bleeps, and it was just like solid. I'm like, bloody hell, that's different.
I don't want to tempt fate or anything, but I think I'm latched to a really big fish at the minute. This one feels a little bit different to all the other ones.
Different to the bites that I've had on there before, and eventually it started to move ever so slowly towards me, and it was moving like inches at a time. I was like, this feels completely different to anything I've ever caught from this lake. And I managed to walk back into the bivvy, lean into the bivvy, get my head cam, put my head cam on, put my chest waders on, and I thought this could be the moment. You know, this feels completely different. And at this point, the fish had swam a little bit towards me, and then it slowly trundled off to the left. Like this was like
steady.
then it just like.
God, I got a proper arm ache. Oh, there's my neck.
And the way that Girton is you've got quite a bit of distance between each swim.
Yeah.
Probably about 150 metres between each swim. It's a big water, 70 acres, and luckily there was no one around me.
Yeah.
Most of the anglers were on the far bank and fishing in the areas where there was, you know, a lot more carp. Probably about 40 minutes later.
40 minutes?
40 minutes, mate. I never saw this fish.
Oh,
it just took me left, and left, and left, and left. And a lot of my mates turn around and say, Crow, you play a fish like a girl. You don't ever bend into it and stuff like that. But couldn't give it any stick at all. So I had to be careful of the way I was playing it. And it just trundled off to the left. And it kept going and going and going and going. I ended up wading 5, possibly 6 swims down.
No way.
To the point where I was trying to, it just kept going, And luckily there was no one near me, and I managed to get a better angle on it from 5 or 6 swims down, where it was out straight in front of me. And eventually it made its way into me. Never got a sighting on it until about 2 minutes before I netted it. And I just saw this big common come up. You can see it on my videos, the head cam footage is there, it just rolls in front of me. And you can see the golden scales. And there's 2 big commons in there.
Yes.
One is a 50-pounder, which is called Tootie, and the other one is Butthead, which at that point had done 62. That was his heaviest weight. And I had no idea which one it was. But you're obviously, you know it's one of them. You know it's one of them.
Either, mate.
So yeah, well, I was exactly the same. I don't care which one it is, I just want one of them. You know, and it's perfect for that film. Big fish conditions and stuff like that. I know, yeah. It's just,
what an instant.
It was like the script was just written, mate. Honestly, it was weird. Proper weird moment.
Weird,
these things that happen, and it came up again, and then I leant forwards with the net, and again there was no get in the net, no elation, none of that kind of stuff. It was just like, yes. I think on the film you can actually go, oh yes, boy.
Oh yes, boy.
That's a big one, yeah. And I saw, and I knew straight away it was not Tootie, because Tootie had a slightly damaged tail, so it can only be Butthead. And I saw him there, and from the time I'd been in the water, probably 40 minutes, I landed it, rolled the net up, waded back down to the swim, and got into the bivvy. The dog's still in the bivvy, which is amazing, mad, because she normally definitely trying to get out.
She's done well here,
yeah,
mate.
she digs out, and you know she's a bit crazy, my dog is. And got the phone, and by the time I got the phone, some of the lads on the far bank, which one is it?
Yeah.
So I remember my mate Si Tolly texting me, which one is it? He knew that it was one of them, and you know, it's Butthead. And within moments, there was half a dozen lads came round, and they took over. They're brilliant lads on Girton. It's a great syndicate anyway, great bunch of lads.
With a little bit of hot water bottle, I think, 'cause I'm quite cold. But hopefully, I'm stirred to see those alarms go, mate, and at least try and nick something tonight or tomorrow morning. What do you think to the prospects here?
I think it's bleak, I think, mate, really.
Do you think bleak? Yeah, you think it's not going to happen?
Yeah. No, I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but we've seen a lot of fish on your side earlier on. It's gone a little bit quiet. I think we've got a chance first light, I do. Always, first light's always a good time in the spring months. I do think, around about now, you tend to get a lot of, and somebody will comment about this, but I'm generalising, winter months, you tend to get a lot of nighttime bites.
Yeah.
Spring comes around, you tend to move more to daytime bites. And because we didn't get a daytime bite today, or a fish, bite, it could be pretty slow for us during the night. So I think first light is when we've got a better chance.
Fingers crossed, mate. Thank you so much for sharing that, mate. I'm inspired. And mate, fingers crossed, the next time you see us, we'll either be playing one in the dark or playing one in the light tomorrow morning. Big love, mate.
You too, bud.
Gosh, Jack, that was incredible.
All right.
Have you got hard on? Oh, they were good, mate. Well, it's a surprisingly quiet night. We saw them sort of long in that little alcove last night, and they were showing like bilio. They looked like they were cleaning out, sort of thrashing around. I had that one occurrence yesterday, dropped the lead, nothing through the night which I expected to take, and this morning I was about to re-drop another rod in that same area because I'd seen them. Again, they'd come back in overnight and it's rattled off. Same sort of take, a big drop back. Fish just obviously dropped the lead on the take. But this time I've connected into one. They definitely have been shown in that area. That area has been a hive of activity. To be fair to Crowy last night, he's had a quiet night as well, but there's not been a lot showing in his swim at all. They've all been showing here. Right, well, there he is. The stuff of spring carp morning dreams. First light, I got done on the same spot last night, which was a bit of a wounder. Put the rig back out with the aid of Crowy's bait boat. Thank you very much, Crowy. Nothing happened overnight, not a bleep. I woke up a little bit disconcerted. Sure enough, as soon as the sun's poked up, away it's gone. A really good fight. And I've got a lovely, clean S&R mirror. I'm a happy angler. Fingers crossed, with the rods back out and Crowy's rods out, we can maybe nick another one. Either way, I'm very happy. Can you tell? Hopefully you're enjoying the content thus far. It is giveaway time. How would you like to be in with the chance of winning 3 Avid Elevate rods, the same setup that Mr. Crow uses right over there? Now, in order to win, you need to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and in the comments below, answer this question. What was the weight of Butthead when Crowy caught him from Girton? Put that in the comments. And finally, make sure that you like our Facebook page, because that's where we'll announce the lucky winner.
Well, good morning, and it is one of those lovely spring mornings at the moment where the sun's just come up, the carp have started to show, but in my swim at the moment, I'm not making excuses because I've not caught anything. There's nothing really showing apart from my fish has been fizzing quite close into the right here, and a few moments ago I've just moved my right hand rod and just dropped it really silently using the bait boat, because it is a little bit of a bay where I am and I don't want to be making too much disturbance. So the advantage obviously with the bait boat is you can just trundle it out and drop it down nice and quietly. So that's what I've done with my right hand rod. I've left my 2 left hand rods in the same place where I put them out yesterday, because most of the carp at the moment are showing in Hassan's swim over to the left hand side. It's almost like a little bay over in that far corner, which is off the wind. It's on the back of the wind. You can't feel this at the moment, but the wind today is coming from the east. It's quite cold, and it's really sort of coming towards me here, and it's sort of covering most of this part of the lake. So are the fish sitting on the back of the wind? Well, at the minute they definitely are. Are they there because it's a cold wind? these are the kind of things that go through your mind when you're fishing at this time of the year. But I'm still pretty confident I'm going to get a bite out of this swim, because there are a couple of nice plateaus out there, roughly where those coots are at the moment. I'm fishing in 4.5 foot, 5 foot and 6 foot with my rods. So bearing in mind the majority of the lake bed's a lot deeper than that, it's the ideal sort of areas for springtime carp to have a feed. So we've still got a few hours left, and I think I arrived about midday yesterday. I'll probably be leaving the lake today about midday, so a few hours left. It is more, I think, daytime bites at this time of the year, and obviously with Hassan having one a few moments ago at first light, I think that kind of proves the point that nothing happened during the night, but as soon as daylight hours come, we've got a chance. So yeah, a few hours left, it's not all over yet.
Well, we are in again. I think we found the spot. Fishing out there to sort of the back of where the wind was yesterday, where I had that occurrence, and I had this one this morning. Unfortunately, the old bait boat wasn't working, so we've had to cast. It's about 22 wraps out there, I think. I just went and sort of, it was a bit all or nothing, sprayed a load of bait around the area, all around that whole area where we've seen them showing, and then I cast 2 hook baits in. This rod that's gone, interestingly, is on a bright pink one. The fish earlier was on a sort of a match the hatch cell hook bait. So whether it's just a spot or whether it's a change of colour, but this one certainly feels a lot slower and a lot better than that last one. So I'm going to play it even more carefully than I normally do. And Jack takes the mickey and says I play him like a girl anyway, so we could be here for some time. Feels good, mate, this one.
Yeah, it's definitely not as tappy, is it?
Ooh, hello. Let's go back out. What's on the end, boy?
Come on, Hass.
That will do.
That'll definitely do, my
Yes,
man. That's got to be a 30.
Cheers, Grover!
That's a cracker, mate.
That's the one, isn't it? That is the one.
Banger. That is a banger, mate. That is a mid.
Yeah, he'll do.
That is
He will
definitely
do
a
all
cracker.
day.
That is an absolute banger.
He will do all day
Mate, that
long.
Is, oh, mate, that's a 30, I'm telling you.
Might be.
No, it is, it's a 30.
Let's slacken that off
That's,
a bit.
that's a 30. Hey?
Calling it.
I think it's about 32 pounds.
How much calling it, mate?
I think it's 28, an upper 20. I was just brushing my teeth.
With that? What
With
is
that. It's bamboo, I'm sustainable.
What is
I'm all
that?
about renewable,
That
sustainable.
looks like something that my grandma used to use in the 1920s.
It might well be, just to do a feat. But I was brushing my teeth, mate, and if you're not getting bites, the key is go to brush your teeth or do something, and something will happen. And it's happened.
God, that's a banging fish, mate. Absolutely.
Oh, I'm made up, mate. I'm going to brush my teeth.
All right. Dog likes to taste a bit as well, look at it. God, that's a lovely carp, mate.
What do you want? What do you want, eh? You've seen a few bigger than this in your time, dog. The 3 threes. They do not come much better than that. An absolute S&R stunner. I could chuck a load of carpy cliches out there, but I am genuinely, absolutely blown away by this carp. I'm with the absolute big fish legend Crowie. I've got very lucky because I've had all the fish in a swim. But as carp go, honestly, what a specimen. To all the boys at S&R, thank you so much. Honestly, I'm going to remember this one for a long time. Spring big fish carp fishing. I'm living the dream. Mwah! Get in there. What a result, mate.
Good lad.
I feel like Simon Crowe in his prime.
What you like?
That carp.
Mega.
It must be it must be your big fish man mindset / general quality rubbing off on me, mate, because that's a turner. But what I wanted to talk to you about
Yep.
is the modern day carp fishing scene, mate. Like, you've done it for an awful long time. We've talked about just a fraction of your incredible captures. You've done it for articles and magazines, you've done it filming, you've done it modern day, your own blogs on YouTube, and you continue to do it and be a real good ambassador for sort of fishing and avid. For you, modern times, how has that changed at all? Has it changed angling for you? Has angling changed you in any way? What are your thoughts on that?
The fishing scene, or the carp fishing scene, is changing all the time, and you have to stay up with it because it's moving so fast. And I often get asked, do I like it now or did I prefer it back then? And honestly, I like both. I do. I enjoy the modern day scene now. It's completely different to the past. It's a lot busier now, a lot more people carp fishing. So obviously, going back in time, if I could go back in time, armed with the knowledge that I've got now, I'd really enjoy that kind of fishing from, you know, the 80s, the 90s, from when I was a kid. But you know, I don't want to change anything because the modern day scene's also got lots of good things about it, because the passage back in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of secret squirrels in carp fishing.
Yeah.
And I'm not that kind of person. I like to share information. I like to say, hey, I've seen a fish over there, Hassan, blah blah, fish there, and I expect exactly the same kind of information back. And one of the difficulties I used to have when I was a kid in the carp fishing scene was I was always willing to talk to people, but nobody was willing to talk back to us because it was one of those secret squirrels. I even remember going to places like Motorway Pond in East Yorkshire, seeing a guy catch a fish from the opposite bank, walking round and seeing him saying, "Happy with your fish, mate?" And he denied catching one right in front of me. And I saw that the grass had been, there was no unhooking matter that he was using at the time, but the grass was all wet. I saw him land the fish. I saw everything that happened. And a few years later, he admitted to me, yeah, you know, he had caught one. It was a guy, I'm not going to name him, but it was a guy that I ended up becoming friends with. But that was how the carp fishing scene was back in those days.
Yeah.
But nowadays, you can find out what you want. If you want to go day ticket fishing in Nottinghamshire or wherever, you can go online and find out this kind of information. And I love that part of carp fishing now, the modern day scene. I love watching everybody's vlogs. I love scrolling through YouTube and Instagram and seeing people's fish, because it's nice to see people enjoying carp fishing for what it is. And you know, there's so many good things about carp fishing, and I like all aspects of it.
What about the future for you, mate? Obviously, at the moment, you create content. You're with Avid, you're with DNA as well, and you do a great job for those in terms of camera. You talked there about credibility, and you've got it in absolute abundance, mate. I think anybody knows that what you're saying is tried and tested. Hence why you're on this piece talking about things. But the future, are you going to carry on doing the sort of vlog stuff, content creation?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. You know, at the end of the day, I'm very grateful of the position that I'm in. You know, with working for Avid and DNA Baits and the other companies that I've worked for before. The fact that a company puts their faith in you doing something and representing their brand, I think, is an honour. And I think I do think, and having worked in the carp fishing a long time now, I do think there's a lot of people that take things for granted in the fishing world. They expect a little bit too much and don't give anything back, but you do have to give something back, you absolutely do. Because at the end of the day, if you start taking things for nothing, then why should a brand support you, whether it's a bit of free bait or a bit of free end tackle or whatever? Always give them something back and be respectful. I've done it for a long time, and a lot of people do ask me, you know, how'd you get a job working in the fishing industry? And I think the fundamental thing you need is an absolute passion for carp fishing, which I've definitely got in abundance. And I think all the lads that do similar kind of jobs to myself, like you and other guys, they've all got that same love and passion for carp fishing, and it never dies. Doesn't matter whether it's raining, snowing or anything, you're always in love with carp fishing, even on a bad day, even when you're blanking like today. I still loved, you know, being here today, seeing you with those fish, mate. It's just a joy, just being out on the bank. But is that, I can hear an alarm now.
I think I'm in, mate. I'm going to go.
There you go, another bite.
Yes, look at that. Well, I've just slipped back that mega one. The other two rods were out there fishing. I've gone round to Crow, he had a lovely chat and all things the modern carp scene with him. And as I'm there, it's only gone again, hasn't it? The same area, the same rod, the same bright up bait, pink one on a little Ronnie, load of scattered mainline cell and pellet that I put out there. I didn't think it'd go, we ain't got long left at all. But I'm absolutely buzzing to be playing another one. Don't feel quite the same stamp or pedigree as that last one, but it's another bite, and hopefully, with a bit of luck, there's another one in the net. Yeah, look. The perils of fishing two relatively tight at this range. The fish has run through, picked up the other rod. I've tried to untangle it with the help of Jack. It's not quite worked out, so I've literally done the only thing I can do, which is to open the bail arm on the rod that's not got the fish on, try and gently coax this in with the other line around it. It's not a nice feeling, but you've got to be able to deal with every eventuality, really. Fingers crossed, we can just keep him coming. Here he is, fish number 3. What a lovely short spring session on SNR. Crowy, mate, get in here.
Well done, mate. What a great little session.
Mate, thank you.
Lovely fish as well, mate.
Thank you so much for coming, mate. I've tucked you up royally and taken the side of the swim with all the fish, mate.
Who cares?
That is poor for me to put a guest in that place. But, mate, honestly, thank you so much for your insight into your fishing, all the big fish you've caught, your mindset and everything, mate. You genuinely are, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, a true angling inspiration for me throughout my angling. So it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you.
You've definitely been my inspiration today. So well done, mate. Great to see 3 lovely fish on the bank this morning. Perfect conditions. Lovely session, mate. Good to see you.
Cheers, mate. Thank you guys for watching. We'll be back soon. And until then, I hope you guys can help yourself to some action too the next time you're on the bank.